Welcome to Immigration Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Stateless in Germany have hardly any rights. Great reads, Gen Z, the Liberals' unsound immigration plan and independent movie theaters in crisis. More Americans face persistent debt as interest rates and fees rise, report shows. She was 4'8", the Christmas tree was 7 feet tall, one streetcar ride and bus transfer later, she got it home. How Ottawa ignored its own warning and made Canada's refugee crisis even worse. Stateless in Germany have hardly any rights. Deutsche Welle. There are around 126,000 stateless people living in Germany, including many Palestinians, Kurds, and former citizens of the Soviet Union or Yugoslavia. Stateless people in Germany face a range of challenges, including difficulty opening bank accounts and getting employment. Stateless children born in Germany are not granted German citizenship, as the country bases citizenship on parentage, not birthplace. Human rights organization State Free is campaigning for stateless children born in Germany to be granted German citizenship. However, this issue has not been included in any draft citizenship laws. Great reads, Gen Z, the Liberals' unsound immigration plan and independent movie theaters in crisis. The Globe and Mail. The Globe and Mail's great reads from this week include an examination of Generation Z and how they have been shaped by recent events, such as the pandemic, and remain a resilient force despite their pessimism about the future. Another article questions the Liberal government's plan to increase immigration levels and whether this would actually benefit the economy. Additionally, the challenges faced by independent movie theaters in Canada are explored, including restrictive demands from studios and distributors. Other articles cover topics such as the families of Israeli hostages protesting the government's failure to bring them home, Canada's innovation problem, the use of drones by Ukrainian soldiers, and efforts to revive Canada's national wool industry. More Americans face persistent debt as interest rates and fees rise, report shows. Yahoo! U.S. credit card users paid a record $130 billion in interest and fees in 2022, rising to a record high $1 trillion in overall credit card debt, according to a new report from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The average cardholder carried $5,288 in total credit card debt at the end of 2022, up 24% from 2021 lows. She was 4'8", the Christmas tree was 7 feet tall, one streetcar ride and bus transfer later, she got it home. The Toronto Star. An editor and writer for the Toronto Star, Deborah Yeo, wrote an article about her mother's first real Christmas tree. Her mother, Helen Yeo, was 12 and in grade 9 when she was given the school's Christmas tree. Helen dragged the tree to a streetcar stop and waited for a streetcar to come. After convincing the sixth driver to let her on, she boarded and found a man to help her bring the tree to the center of the car. She then had to transfer to a bus, and after 6 or 7 drivers the friendly one finally agreed to let her on. Helen then dragged the tree home, and when her mother saw it, she couldn't believe it. Yeo confesses that she doesn't have real Christmas trees in her own house, but rather an artificial tree that she bought over 30 years ago in Niagara Falls. She puts it up a week or so before Christmas and sometimes thinks it's more trouble than it's worth. However, it's a tradition she doesn't want to give up, and it's now a way to honor her mother's trek all those years ago. She finishes the article by encouraging readers to donate to the Star Santa Claus Fund, which aims to raise $1.5 million this year to deliver 50,000 gift boxes to financially vulnerable children. How Ottawa ignored its own warning and made Canada's refugee crisis even worse. The Globe and Mail. A decision by Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, IRCC, to waive temporary visitor visa requirements without publicizing the change has led to a surge in asylum applications and a growing backlog, according to an op-ed in the Globe and Mail. The IRCC's decision to waive the requirements for up to 449,000 applicants earlier this year has led to a 7-month increase in asylum applications, close to double the initial prediction of 8,600, with 3 months still to be counted. The op-ed argues that the decision undermines public confidence in immigration and is another example of the government's incompetence. Hong Kong denies visa to prominent Tiananmen Square scholar. Al Jazeera. Rowena He, a Hong Kong professor known for her research on the 1989 Tiananmen Square crackdown, has been fired from her position at the Chinese University of Hong Kong after her visa extension was declined by the city's immigration authorities. He is the author of the book Tiananmen Exiles, Voices of the Struggle for Democracy in China and has published numerous articles on China's democracy movement. The move has been seen as further evidence of Chinese government censorship and revisionism in academia. Hong Kong has recently denied visas to foreign critics, including journalists and activists. Para una abuela en Gaza, la historia es más aterradora que los ataques aéreos. New York Times. Mohammed Abu Jaib, a 39-year-old software engineer living in Los Angeles, was desperate to save his grandmother who was thousands of miles away in the Gaza Strip. He spent 6 days glued to the television and sending messages on his phone, urging his grandmother to flee the area as Israeli bombs rained down. Abu Jaib's grandmother, however, refused to leave, stating that she had already experienced displacement in 1948 and was determined to stay in her home until the end. The story of displacement is deeply ingrained in the identity of Gaza, where approximately 80% of the population are registered refugees or their descendants. Despite the suffocating blockade that has been in place for 16 years, many Palestinians in Gaza cling to their displaced identity. As Israel prepares for a ground invasion in Gaza, there are fears that history will repeat itself. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated that Palestinians will be forced out of their homes for the duration of the conflict. Many in Gaza worry that they will not be allowed to return and that the invasion will be used as an excuse to permanently remove them from their land. The trauma of displacement is at the core of the identity of Gazans, who still hold the keys and documents to their former homes and hope to one day return. Abu Jaib's family has experienced the effects of displacement firsthand. His parents emigrated to the United States, and he has managed to bring some of his siblings to safety in various countries. However, one sister remains in Gaza, and Abu Jaib fears for her safety. As the violence and death toll continue to rise, the desperation and sense of hopelessness among Palestinians in Gaza is growing. The legacy of displacement continues to shape their lives, even in the face of a suffocating blockade and relentless attacks. Europe's coming reckoning on immigration. Foreign policy. Italy and Europe are facing a rapidly aging population, with declining birth rates and a shortage of young workers. In 2022, Italian childbirths hit a record low, and the country is struggling to generate new jobs for young people. Meanwhile, the retirement age is likely to rise, and retirement and health insurance schemes are under pressure. In light of this demographic shift, increased migration from Africa could be an opportunity for Italy and Europe. However, anti-immigration sentiment is prevalent, and there is a belief that Europe is experiencing a migration crisis. The author argues that Europe needs to reframe its view of Africa and see it as an opportunity rather than a threat. Africa's rapidly growing population and booming cities could provide a source of young and working-aged people to support Europe's aging population. Spain's minister responsible for migration has stated that Europe will require 50 million new migrants over the next 25 years just to stabilize its population. Europe will need immigrants from non-traditional sources to become workers, consumers, researchers, engineers, scientists, and professionals. Europe must overcome the delusions of right-wing extremist or populist politicians who promote closing borders as a solution. Instead, increased immigration is necessary to prevent Europe from becoming an empty amusement park filled with cultural relics. The United States is also facing similar challenges, and large-scale immigration is key to paying for the old and future prosperity. As societies age and young people become scarcer, there will be a competition among relatively rich countries to attract young people from poorer parts of the world. China, on the other hand, is facing its own population decline but is unlikely to accept immigration as a solution due to its political system and cultural barriers. Africa, with its deep penetration of European languages and culture, presents a unique opportunity for Europe. Investing in Africa now to improve its cities and education systems could temper outmigration and create skilled workers and innovators for the future. The alternative is to face a future that will be far more disruptive and challenging. South African visa waiver sought for Chinese, Indian nationals. Bloomberg. South Africa's Minister of Tourism, Patricia de Lille, is calling for visa requirements to be eased or waived for Chinese and Indian nationals to boost visitor numbers. De Lille said that the visa system is a problem and that she intends to meet with Home Affairs Minister Aaron Motsoaledi to discuss the possibility of waiving visas for Chinese and Indian visitors for limited duration stays. De Lille's department is also working to ensure visitor safety following a series of attacks, and the industry has invested in a mobile phone application to summon help if attacked. New federal immigration targets coming next week. The Globe and Mail. Canadian Immigration Minister Mark Miller has stated that he is not in favor of lowering Canada's immigration targets, as the government prepares to announce its new goals for the number of permanent residents it plans to welcome each year until 2026. The government is considering whether the annual targets should remain static, rise, or go down, and whether the categories of migrants who can stay in Canada should be refined. A recent poll found that more than half of Canadians want the government to accept fewer immigrants than it is planning for in 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to 6 Degrees Briefing with your host, Dr. Six. Today, we've covered a wide range of news stories from around the world. From the challenges faced by stateless people in Germany to the growing debt crisis in the US, and even a heartwarming story about a Christmas tree journey in Canada. But let's dive deeper into some of these stories and share my thoughts with you. First, let's talk about the situation of stateless people in Germany. It's disheartening to hear that they face numerous challenges, from difficulty opening bank accounts to finding employment. It's time for Germany to address this issue and grant stateless children born in the country German citizenship. Human rights organizations like State Free are doing important work in advocating for the rights of stateless individuals, and it's crucial that their efforts are recognized and supported. Moving on to the US, the rising debt crisis is a cause for concern. The record-high credit card debt and the exorbitant amount of interest and fees being paid by Americans is alarming. It's a reminder for all of us to manage our finances responsibly and avoid falling into the trap of persistent debt. Let's take a moment to reflect on our own financial habits and make sure we're making wise decisions for our future. Now, let's take a lighter turn and talk about the heartwarming story of a Christmas tree journey in Canada. It's incredible to hear about Helen Yeo's determination to bring a tree home, facing numerous challenges along the way. It's a reminder of the holiday spirit and the importance of cherishing traditions that connect us to our past. So, let's embrace the joy of the holiday season and remember the little things that make this time of year special. Finally, we discussed the immigration challenges faced by Europe, especially in Italy. With an aging population and declining birth rates, Europe needs to rethink its view of Africa as an opportunity rather than a threat. Increased immigration could help support Europe's aging population and boost its economy. It's time to break down barriers and embrace the diversity and potential that immigrants bring. So, there you have it, my friends. A whirlwind tour of some of the most pressing news stories from around the world. Remember, these briefings are just the beginning, and I encourage you to dive deeper into these topics and share your own thoughts and ideas. Let's keep the conversation going and continue to learn from each other. Now, I turn it over to you. What are your thoughts on these news stories? Do you have any questions or insights to share? I'm all ears. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.